Every Spider-Man Ever presents Amazing Spider-Man issue 41. Aunt Anna has an offer for Peter's Aunt May. She wants May to move in with her. They'd save some money and they'd keep each other company, but it's an offer that Aunt May can refuse because she worries that Peter is too frail to do without her. Meanwhile, Peter Parker, the frail and fragile nephew, is buying a motorcycle. But to do so, he needs J. Jonah Jameson to approve a loan, which, to everyone's surprise, Jonah does? He thinks that if Peter has a debt, Jonah will be able to buy his pictures for cheap. As Jonah hangs up the phone, he reverts to his usual state of being, a critic of Spider-Man. His son, John Jameson, tries to get his dad to ease up on Spider-Man. After all, Spider-Man saved his life. John is there to explain what happened to him on his last trip to space. He explains that after a spacewalk, some strange spores drifted into the capsule with him and clung to his spacesuit. He was subjected to days of tests until the spores finally faded away. From that moment on, he's been followed and guarded by the space agency. In fact, there are two men right outside the door. Meanwhile and elsewhere, a man in a Rhino costume is charging through the desert. At a border checkpoint, he smashes through the guards and a concrete building and deflects bullets off his bulletproof hide on his way to a secret destination. Back with Peter Parker, and our hero bumps into Betty Brant, newly back in town. They sit down for a coffee together, but find that all their chemistry is gone. Every conversation is sheer torture, and all that love that they felt for each other seems to have vanished. But when Ned Leeds shows up, Betty lights up, and it's clear that the two were meant to be together. Peter realizes that he never had anything in common with Betty, she was just the first girl that he loved. After Peter leaves Betty together with Ned, he sees the Rhino on a TV screen, heading to New York, and then runs into Jonah saying goodbye to his son, almost running afoul of the federal agents that are following John. Peter's now caught up on all the plot threads so far, and when he thanks Jonah for vouching for him, Jonah demands pictures of the Rhino as thanks, and so Peter is now tied into the plot. Peter wonders about John's bodyguards and about finding a place for himself, although he could never leave frail Aunt May, and about what the Rhino is after as he heads home to study. But that study is interrupted by a radio report about the Rhino in New York. Across the city, John Jameson's bodyguards are under attack, and suddenly the Rhino smashes into the room with John and Jonah in it. The Rhino grabs and kidnaps John, and Spidey arrives just as Jonah is explaining all of this to the wounded agents. Luckily, Spider-Man catches up to Rhino and John, and the fight that follows is one of strength versus speed. This isn't a villain that Spider-Man can just punch, he almost breaks his arm when he tries. Spidey learns that the Rhino is Russian and wants to sell John Jameson to the highest bidder, and that there are plenty of countries who will pay top dollar during the space race. Spidey also learns that the Rhino is a villain he can dodge, and so he does, hoping to tire the Russian villain out. He taunts and avoids, leading the Rhino to crash into lampposts and phone booths before Spidey webs the Rhino's feet up, wraps his legs around the Rhino's neck, and slams the Rhino down into the ground. The Rhino stands again, but it's temporary, and he falls back down and falls unconscious. The police arrive just in time, followed by J. Jonah Jameson, who demands that Spidey be arrested, even when his own son confirms that Spider-Man has saved his life. Again, as the police try, with no luck, to remove the Rhino suit, Peter Parker regrets not taking any photographs. But the next day, he rides into town on his new motorbike. It makes him feel so confident that he hits on Gwen Stacy, but she never saw him as the motorcycle type, and she rebuffs his advances. Instead, Peter rides to a woman who does love him, Aunt May, where he finds Anna leaving just when he arrives, and May tells Peter that Anna has invited them both for dinner on Sunday night. After avoiding her for months, Peter is finally going to get to meet Anna's niece. He's finally going to meet Mary Jane Watson. Thanks for watching, and while you decide what to watch next, here's a fun fact about this issue. In the letters page, a fan takes issue with how the series has dealt with protesters in the past. By all accounts, this seems to be a Steve Ditko issue who really hated beatniks, but Stan Lee doesn't throw him under the bus, blaming the scene on just a funny bit, but it does reflect a change in how Spider-Man sees protesters going forward.